The land of the rising sun. What comes to mind when you think of Japan? Perhaps samurai, sushi, or futuristic cities with neon lights. Japan's story is epic, full of warriors, emperors, isolation, and transformation. This island nation's history stretches back thousands of years, and it's anything but boring. Japan isn't just one island, it's an archipelago of over 6,800 islands scattered off the Asian continent. And, remarkably, Japan's imperial family traces its lineage back over 2,600 years, the oldest continuous monarchy in the world. How did a cluster of islands produce such a rich tapestry of history and culture? Let's journey through the entire history of Japan, from its prehistoric origins to the modern marvel we know today. Ancient beginnings, prehistory, and mythic origins. Our story begins in the Stone Age. The earliest people arrived in Japan about 30,000 years ago, when sea levels were lower and land bridges connected the islands to Asia. These first settlers lived off the land, and over millennia, they developed the Jōmon culture, circa 14,000 BCE. The Jōmon people were hunter-gatherers, famous for their rope-patterned pottery. In fact, Jōmon means cord-marked in Japanese. Around 300 BCE, a new wave of settlers called the Yayoi migrated from mainland Asia, likely from Korea or China. The Yayoi brought new skills: wet rice farming, metalworking, and weaving, revolutionizing life on the islands. Small villages grew, farming spread, and society became more stratified. Fast forward a few centuries, and regional clans began uniting under powerful chieftains. According to Japanese legend, one of these chieftains became the first emperor, Jimmu, in 660 BCE. While this date lives in mythology, it's traditionally considered the start of Japan's imperial line. Fun twist? Jimmu was said to be a descendant of the sun goddess Amaterasu, giving Japan its nickname, Land of the Rising Sun. Whether or not the early emperors truly had divine ancestry, the idea sure helped early rulers legitimize their power. What's important is that by the 1st centuries CE, a unified Yamato state emerged in central Japan, laying the foundation for a nation under an emperor. Classical Japan, rise of empire and culture. As the centuries rolled on, Japan formed a central government and absorbed ideas from its neighbors. By the Asuka and Nara periods, 600s to 700s CE, Japan was adopting Chinese writing, Buddhism, and advanced governance systems. Emperors ruled from splendid capitals like Nara, inspired by Chinese cities. In 794 CE, the capital moved to Heian-kyo, today's Kyoto, ushering in the Heian period, a golden age of court culture. The imperial court at Heian was bustling with art, poetry, and elegant living. Imagine ladies and gentlemen in silk kimono, writing haiku and playing musical instruments in illuminated palaces. One of these court ladies, Murasaki Shikibu, wrote an epic story called The Tale of Genji around the year 1000, which is often celebrated as the world's first novel. This masterpiece, over 1,000 years old, offers a window into the romances and intrigues of the Heian court. So Japan wasn't just building a nation, it was also shaping world literature. However, even as culture blossomed, the emperor's power was starting to fade. Aristocratic clans, like the Fujiwara, and eventually samurai warlords, gained influence, setting the stage for a dramatic power shift. Feudal era, samurai and shoguns. By the late 1100s, Japan's elegant court life gave way to an era of samurai rule. Powerful warlords fought for control, and in 1192, a victorious general named Minamoto no Yoritomo was granted the title of Shogun, the military commander-in-chief. This marked the start of the shogunate system, where shoguns governed in the emperor's name. In reality, the emperor became more of a figurehead, while shoguns held the real power. Japan, under the Kamakura shogunate, fended off invaders and dealt with internal strife. In fact, in the 13th century, Japan faced one of its most famous threats: the Mongol invasions. The Mongol Empire, under Kublai Khan, tried to invade Japan twice, in 1274 and 1281. Both times, samurai defenders held the line, and, incredibly, massive typhoons struck, smashing the Mongol fleets. The Japanese believed their gods sent these divine winds, or kamikaze, to protect them. It's a legendary, against all odds story that helped cement the samurai's heroic status. Despite surviving the Mongols, internal power struggles continued. Various clans vied for supremacy in a period of civil wars known as the Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States period, 1400s to 1500s. This was a time of famous samurai heroes, ninja intrigue, and epic battles, a bit like Japan's version of the Wild West, with warlords instead of cowboys. Out of this chaos rose three unifiers: Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. By the early 1600s, Tokugawa Ieyasu triumphed and became shogun in 1603, establishing the Tokugawa shogunate. He moved the seat of power to Edo, modern-day Tokyo. The Tokugawa regime finally ended the constant warfare, bringing Japan a long period of peace and stability. Isolation and the Edo period, 1603 to 1868. Under the Tokugawa shoguns, Japan entered a remarkably peaceful era, but it also closed itself off from much of the world. Starting in the 1630s, the shogunate enacted the policy of sakoku, locked country. Foreigners were barred from entering Japan, and Japanese were forbidden to leave on penalty of death. For over 200 years, Japan lived in relative isolation, trading with only a few Dutch and Chinese merchants at a single port. This sounds extreme, but it helped maintain internal stability and the shogun's control. During the Edo period, another name for the Tokugawa era, culture still thrived internally. Haiku poetry, think of Matsuo Basho's famous haiku about the frog in the old pond, kabuki theater, and woodblock art, ukiyo-e, became popular. The samurai, ironically, had no wars to fight, so many became scholars, bureaucrats, or artists. This era gave us the timeless samurai code of honor, Bushido, in its fullest form, emphasizing loyalty, discipline, and ethics. It also gave us quirky facts. Did you know sumo wrestling as we know it largely developed as a sport during this time? Or that Edo, Tokyo, became one of the largest cities in the world by the 1700s, even while Japan was isolated from the West. Life in isolation was not stagnant. A rich merchant class emerged, cities grew, and literacy rates in Japan may have been the highest in the world by the 1800s. Still, outside Japan, the world was changing fast with industrialization, and eventually, Japan's isolation was forcibly ended. The opening of Japan and modernization, Meiji Restoration. In 1853, American Commodore Matthew Perry sailed a fleet of black steamships into Tokyo Bay, demanding that Japan open its ports for trade. With Western powers knocking, the Tokugawa government realized their feudal swords and castles were no match for modern cannons and ships. Facing pressure, Japan reluctantly signed trade treaties.
This foreign intrusion sparked domestic turmoil. Many Japanese blamed the shogun for weakness. In 1868, a group of reformist samurai ousted the last Tokugawa shogun in what's known as the Meiji Restoration. They restored Emperor Meiji to power, or more accurately, made him the figurehead of a new government, and set Japan on a crash course to modernity. The Meiji leaders were determined to catch up with the West. They moved the capital to Edo, renaming it Tokyo, and rapidly industrialized the country. Railroads, telegraph lines, modern schools, and factories sprang up at lightning speed. Japan studied and adopted Western political systems, technologies, and even fashions. Picture those classic photographs of Japanese gentlemen in bowler hats and ladies in Victorian dresses. In just a few decades, Japan went from a closed feudal society to a modern industrial nation, an astonishing transformation. One striking example of progress, by 1894 to 1895, Japan was strong enough to defeat Qing China in the First Sino-Japanese War, and by 1905, it even beat Imperial Russia in the Russo-Japanese War. That victory shocked the world. Tiny Japan had become the first Asian power in modern times to defeat a major European nation. Japan was no longer an isolated archipelago. It had arrived on the world stage as a formidable empire. Empire and World War, 1930s to 1945. Flush with its new power, Japan's ambitions grew in the early 20th century. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, Japan sided with the Allies and gained some former German colonies in the Pacific. In the 1930s, amidst economic troubles and nationalist fervor, Japan's military influence over the government intensified. Japan invaded Manchuria in 1931 and entered into a war with China in 1937. This era of expansion led Japan into an alliance with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, the Axis powers of World War II. Japan hoped to dominate Asia and the Pacific. On December 7, 1941, it launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, drawing the United States into World War II. The war in the Pacific that followed was brutal and intense. Japanese forces initially captured vast territories across Asia. However, by 1944 to 45, the tide turned. Allied forces pushed back, island by island. In August 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the first and only use of nuclear weapons in war. Faced with unimaginable destruction and the Soviet Union declaring war,
Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. World War II had come to a devastating end, and Japan lay in ruins. It was a dark and tragic chapter in Japan's history, one that profoundly affected its national psyche. Post-war recovery and contemporary Japan. After World War II, Japan was occupied by Allied, primarily U.S., forces from 1945 to 1952. Under the guidance of General Douglas MacArthur, Japan demilitarized and adopted a new pacifist constitution, renouncing war. The emperor's status became symbolic, ending the notion of him being divine, and democratic government was established. The Japanese people faced the monumental task of rebuilding a shattered nation, and rebuild they did, with astonishing success. From the 1950s to the 1970s, Japan experienced an economic miracle. The country rapidly became a global leader in manufacturing and technology, giving us cars, electronics, and innovations known worldwide. By the 1980s, Japan had the world's second largest economy. This period also saw the spread of Japanese pop culture, everything from anime and manga to video games and Sony Walkmans, captivating the globe. Talk about a turnaround. In a few decades, Japan went from post-war hardship to boom. And here's an eye-opening fact about modern Japan. Today, vending machines are everywhere. Over 5 million of them dot the nation's streets, selling everything from hot coffee to fresh bananas. It's a quirky testament to how modern and convenient life in Japan has become. Yet, amid high-tech trends, Japan also treasures its ancient traditions. Age-old practices like the tea ceremony, sumo wrestling, and annual festivals for cherry blossoms, the famous sakura season, remain integral to Japanese life, blending past and present. Conclusion: tradition meets future. The history of Japan is a story of continual reinvention. This small island nation began with migrating tribes in the Ice Age and grew into an imperial realm with one of the world's longest dynasties. It saw the age of the samurai, chose centuries of seclusion, then rapidly transformed into a modern power, influencing the world in everything from technology to culture. Through disasters, wars, and astonishing recoveries, the spirit of Japan endures. Today, when you walk through Tokyo, you might see ancient shrines tucked between skyscrapers, or a kimono-clad person taking a smartphone selfie. A perfect picture of Japan's blend of old and new. From samurai to Nintendo, from Shinto shrines to Shinkansen bullet trains, Japan's journey through history is a testament to its adaptability and vibrant culture. We hope you enjoyed this whirlwind tour of Japanese history. Mata ne! See you next time!